This will be a much more passionate video in comparison to a lot of the character discussions I'd like to do. You know, all these 3 a week. This one's theme is royalty, and as that, I really wanted to pick the king of the underworld, Geer. And when I say that there's a little bit more passion, there's also a little bit of bias because usually I like to keep them set at 7 pictures per character, 7 panels. Obviously, this is going to be much more than 7 because while looking through them, there were so many that I had to pick. I just said, screw it. I'll give Geer an exception, and I'm going to just let him have as many panels as I feel like he should have. And the reason that, if you've heard me talk about it in the live stream and you at least know enough about my favorite characters in the series, Geer is one of them. Like, Geer is easily up there. Top 5. I'd say probably my top 5 currently are not in any order. You got Natsu Zareth, Ignia, potentially. Ignia is kind of like a potential. I'll put Ignia as like potential number 6. But Natsu, Zareth, Geer, Acnologia, and Wendy. But Geer is like a special case because when you look at someone like Natsu, he's the main character, you have so much stuff to look over for him. Same thing with Zareth. Acnologia is one of the best designs in the series. He's got a really good display, but we didn't have his backstory, but recently we got it, and that really boosted his character in my eyes because of how well the backstory really fit into his character. Wendy as well. Wendy has a really great development and progression throughout the series. Geer, though, Geer is only in a very short like part of this series. He's only in a little over 30 chapters, and the way that I really like to look at Geer, like he was only in about half of the arc where he was the main bad guy in. He was the main antagonist in Tartaros, and yet he was only in the second half of it. And the reason why I like when you have a character who lived in such a short period of time, and why I mention how much I like the character is I think Geer is the perfect example of a one arc antagonist. Like you have like somebody like Jalal. Jalal, existed way early in the series. He was the bad guy in the Tower of Heaven, and then came back, and since then, he's been redeemed and gone through his own journey. You get characters who, when you establish them, it's like they could be bad at the time, but in the future, maybe they'll come back and be an ally, or just be a straight comrade. Whereas someone like Geer is this character is going to exist in just this arc start and you get him at the end. And obviously that is because Geer unfortunately died, though he lives on. He lives on in Eden Zero as pretty much their logo. Like the face, the logo thing for obviously like Fairy Tail, you get the Fairy Tail Guild crest. And then, Rave Master, you have, Ravestone, or the main one. And then for Eden Zero, you have like the symbol of their ship, and the symbol of their ship looks like Geer's head. So I was very happy about that because it's like he lives on also Arsenal's, and by Arsenal having his helmet similar to the Eden Zero logo, that makes it by proxy related to Geer. So happy about that. But Geer had a really nice debut into the series. The way that he first showed up when when Mary Jane was fighting Salem, and you just pandered over to Geer, who was the king of the underworld, like right here this panel. He's got a sick throne. He's got a great design. And then you finally see like the first thing he really does when he's talking to Kyoka, and he's pretty much just Punisher. You have Kyoka who just took a lance to the gut from Urza to the point where it went from one side of the cube into the center point of gravity, out of the center point of gravity, and then out the other side. She took no damage. Geer, who his thorns are mainly piercing, or it's just like a lance. A lance is a piercing weapon. His thorns are also a piercing weapon. And them just wrapping around Kyoka was completely did far more damage than the lance that Urza did from cube to cube side through the center point of gravity, which is his first display of strength. And then it's like he hijacked into a telepathic link when they were using Warren to communicate between the Fairy Tail Guild, and just he just has this weird static sounding, he just kind of goes all this feedback in his head and he can't take it, and then Geer just hijacks their feed. He gives a little bit of a banter of him real quick, and then he's just like, well, you guys don't need to know anything about me because I'm getting rid of you. Vermin aren't going to be here to really matter tomorrow. He used Allegria. Cube turned into the Plutogrim, this massive island-sized demon that its shouts were destroying. Like it destroyed like the Cardial Cathedral from miles away. And I always that panel. It's funny because it's a really cool panel. Some people don't know about perspective because you can see beforehand and after that it wasn't. It was far away from that spot, but like people look at it and be like, well, it's smaller than the cathedral because of this panel. It's like you know that it's far off in the distance. You know what perspective is? Because if it was the total cube was the size of the cathedral, then the castle that Tartaros has as their base on it would be like the size of a bedroom. So tiny. But it's just a small funny thing. Always, I've seen so many people try and be like, it's so the cube is small. Look at it, it's next to the cathedral. It's like no, it's not. You know, things look smaller in the distance. But anyway, so Geer, like the first thing he really did, you know, punished. He like tore up somebody on his own team, and then like the first thing after that he does is he creates this giant cubic demon in this giant island-sized monster, and then to which or when Lucy breaks her key to summon the Celestial Spirit King, who was a pretty big deal character. We knew he was strong. We didn't know the extent of him, and he could be stronger. It's implied that Geer and the Celestial Spirit King have a past, and clearly, no, it was it was undecided. It was kind of like a stalemate. You have like two characters, both hype trains, and maybe they just never finally got that match off. Just hearing over another series, and you have something like Shanks and Mihawk. You had these two big characters, so it's like, oh wow, they know each other. Oh wow, they apparently have this long going, stalemate between each other. The reason I say it seems that way is because obviously when we saw Geer and the Celestial Spirit King fight, the Celestial Spirit King debuting, like the level of power he's displaying, like tore through an island, and then he used his Meteor Blade to like slash through mountains all the way to the horizon, and just like miles up in the sky, like in the cloud layer. And Geer didn't seem phased by it. And the thing about you got to remember about that is because like Geer casually in his base form was fighting a bloodlusted Celestial Spirit King. But the thing about Celestial Spirits is their strength is proportionate to the person who summons them. They have their own strength, like when Loki was, well, Leo. I wish I could. It's so hard to remember because Loki was so many times over they called him that, but Leo is his actual name, so I just like to go with Leo. But when he was originally just kind of by himself, like he's around Gray's level. Not obviously like on point with Gray. Well, much older Gray. Look at like Sirius Island, but obviously that was stronger than what seemed to be when Lucy summoned him. And I know people are going to be like, well, what about the Big Slow fight? I mean, obviously Gray got nerfed, and they beat Big Slow because of light blinding Big Slow and then Lion's Radiance on. But there can either be, like with Celestial Spirits, you can either be your own strength, you have your own personal level, and then you have whatever the summoner summons you as. That could either be stronger or weaker than your base level. And that is because obviously with Celestial Spirits, when their summoner summons them, like how strong the summoner is, but also how strong the bond between the summoner and the summoned is factored into it. So you look at like the Celestial Spirit King, obviously he had high respect for Lucy, so, he could have easily been strong, like that strong based off of that version of Lucy. Whereas, like, if she summoned him now in the series, he could be much stronger. So, I've always kind of, like, thought maybe, like, the reason, like, that version of the Celestial Spirit King was, where he was when Geer fought him. Because when Geer fought him, Geer was, like, not taking him seriously at all. But then you had, like, Sting and Rogue, who are they're strong in general of the series, but they by themselves they're not that strong. Like when you look at a lot of big characters, but they're actually canonically stronger when they're fighting as a team, and they were able to do better against Geer than Celestial Spirit King. So I'd like to believe that if the Celestial Spirit King showed up of his own power, then he would, him and Geer would fight around even. Geer would probably come out on top because he's got Memento Mori. But anyway, Geer, like he's extremely intelligent, very well planned out. The thing that really screwed him over in the end was his own arrogance, because the only reason that they were able to really defeat him was because Gray got demon slaying from his dad, and Geer knew, obviously, he had a demon slayer in his ranks, and he just kind of let him go about his business because Mark Geer is obviously extremely intelligent. He doesn't think a whole lot of humans, and that level of arrogance and the way that he kind of just always thinks he's planned ahead of everybody else is what screwed him over. I mean, even when Ignil and Acnologia showed up, like Mark Geer was like, this was unexpected. I should probably figure something out. And then shortly after, he was like thinking about how he could potentially, screw over and get rid of both of Acnology and Igno. And I love Mark Geer. Don't get me wrong, but I'm glad that he didn't try to fight either of them or mess with either of them because he would have got flicked out of existence, which would have been such a bigger waste kill than obviously the way he died was not it was a waste of potential of a character that could have been used again, but it was an out that made sense, and it was an out that really like is the very inevitable like end of a failure to their creator. But like his whole display, like Margear is fighting throughout like the entirety of the point where he's introduced. You have him come in, and he messes with the Breto Guild, and then he ends up like meeting up with Urza after she's talked to Minerva. He goes engages with them. Then Sting and Rogue shows up. He engages with them. Obviously, that's after Celestial Spirit King battle. But then he's fighting with Sting and Rogue, and then Natsu shows up. He's fighting them, and then he's fighting Natsu, Sting, and Rogue, and then Gray shows up, and then Natsu and Gray are fighting Mark Gear, and it's just constant combat. While at the same time, like he's displaying stuff about his character, like even though he's not really, he doesn't like humans, but then he kind of like understands the reason about them that Kyoko is enjoying, and then he says like their level of foolishness he finds almost admirable and it's almost lovely to him, and then furthermore like when he gets mad and he displays like this emotion that he thought he had long since discarded, and he's that was and then he put the book down and he just completely thrashed them from his chair, and it makes me sad because Gear, I really wish that Gear kept going, and maybe like you had more demons in the ranks of Zareth's crew with the Spriggan 12, and he had two of them there, and that's obviously more demons above Gear. But at least Gear has one of the best Ethereus designs, and he's got a really sick move set. The fact that he was able to damage an ethereal being like the Celestial Spirit King was pretty impressive. The fact that he was, he had cool stuff like his whole prison. What was it, the cage flower from the Underworld? I wish we got more of his like cool Underworld flowers. I'm I'm hoping that he shows up in Heroes, and obviously that's its own continuity. But I just want to see more stuff from Art Gear, and I don't know, some way to bring him back. I mean, we could have. There are ways to bring back characters in the series. Obviously, it would have to be a tricky way, like Wall. You just had to have like Nineheart make an Historia of Wall, and then Wall like upload himself into build another robot, and then upload his consciousness into it, and then his story could poof out of there, and then machine. So as long as his coding is inside of another machine, he should be fine. Mark Gear is obviously like a lot of demons, artificial, and he has a soul. So there should be a way that for him as an artificial being like that somebody could recreate him potentially. It's hard because his character died, and you got to be careful when you bring back a character from dying. There's a difference between like a fake out death and a full death. So I kind of always like am back and forth with stuff like that because I'd love to see Mark Gear again, but like if they did it, I would need it to be like really like made out sense. Like, maybe some character really wanted to take up Zareth's mantle and like worked into like how to make Gear was one of the ones they went. I don't know. Maybe Historia, and then he does some weird thing, kind of like Madara after he gets Edo Tensei, and then just like when they try to break it, he's like, "Screw you, Kabuto! I don't need your shit," and then breaks away from it because he's not the strongest of the Ethereus demons, but he's the most intelligent. And if you had someone like Madara broke away from the Edo Tensei and gained his control over himself. If Margear, if any one of the like dead characters like were able to do that, it would be someone like Gear, because Gear would be up for it. Like Zareth would have the capabilities. Like if he had the knowledge to, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I bet he could. He's Zareth or August. both like highly intelligent throughout magic, like they know a lot about magic characters, but I doubt there's no way Zareth would. August is kind of weird. Mark Geer, I think Mark Geer would get back in, but maybe like you could do something really cool with him because as an Aetherius demon, he as a character he was obsessed with killing Zareth. That was like ingrained into their DNA. But with Zareth dead, it'd be cool to see him try and find purpose, and maybe you just have that kind of transition of him becoming more human-like. And obviously, this is a big stretch because his character's dead, and I doubt Mishima or a way to think about Mark Gear. Like maybe every so often, be like, remember that really nicely dressed, like cool plant bat demon guy I made? And that guy was cool. If I ever ran into Hiroshima and he was like, you know what? I appreciate how much passion you have for the series. How would you like to write a spin-off? I'd be like, let me write more about Mark Gear. I will come up with a logical, canonical way for him to come back. Obviously, there's other characters that would be really interesting to do, but Mark Gear, you can do so much with him without it hurting potential other things. Like something like a Zareth, like the rise of his empire would be really cool. But I would love to just to do a story with Mark Gear because like his character, like I said, he was only in like 30 something chapters and his character was very set the way he was. So there's a lot of room for development like a character like Zareth who went through this extremely complex story of his own journey and suffering. So love Mark Gear. I mean, his arsenal is already really cool. He's got a move, Memento Mori, that literally erases the concept of life and death. And if it wasn't for his own arrogance, the main character and his rival would have been erased. Like if he just thought about like maybe I shouldn't keep the Demon Slayer around, but unfortunately for Mark Gear, he was one of those guys of it doesn't matter if I keep that around here. It's not like anything's gonna. What is he gonna do? And fortunately for him, did not plan for that guy to have a son that was stronger than he was, much more dedicated to this long sense of plan. But comment below. Tell me what you thought about this character. I loved him. Like I said, he's one of my favorites. I love Margear's character, and I would be more than happy to expand in his story. You know that nice girl that does that Acnologia fan manga. Man, if I could draw, I would do myself a Margear fan series. I miss him. But other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, press the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. For that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.